The stars looked different from Jupiter's orbit. Captain James Walker stood at the bridge of his patrol ship, the EDF Sentinel, watching the distant research station gleam against the giant planet's stormy background. The station was home to 300 of humanity's brightest minds, including his younger brother Tom. They were working on something big. Everyone knew it, but few knew exactly what it was. Walker sipped his coffee, black and bitter, just the way space coffee should be. 20 years of serving in the Earth Defense Force had taught him to appreciate these quiet moments. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Empire's trade network for nearly 50 years now, and these patrols had become routine. The massive shape of an Imperial flagship dropping out of faster-than-light travel changed everything. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, voice steady but tense. "Imperial vessel just arrived. It's the Dominion. No scheduled visits on record." Walker set down his coffee. The Dominion was the personal flagship of Imperial Admiral Vale, one of the Empire's most decorated commanders. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Open communications," Walker ordered. Standard greeting protocol. Before his communications officer could send the message, the Imperial ship's weapons flared to life. Brilliant beams of energy lashed out, not at Walker's ship, but at the research station. "No." Walker's coffee cup crashed to the floor. "Shields up. Get me a channel to that ship now." The station's own shields activated, but they were civilian grade. They lasted less than 10 seconds against the Imperial weapons. Walker watched in horror as the station began to break apart, atmosphere venting into space, carrying with it debris and bodies. "Channel open." "Sir." "Imperial vessel, this is Captain James Walker of the Earth Defense Force. Cease fire immediately. You are attacking an unarmed civilian research facility." The response came in the Empire's characteristic cold tones. "Earth Defense Vessel, this is Admiral Vale. This facility has been deemed a threat to Imperial security. Do not interfere, or you will be designated hostile." Walker's hands gripped his command chair. His ship's weapons might as well have been toys compared to the Imperial flagship. But his brother was on that station. Launch rescue shuttles. All of them. The Sentinel's small fleet of rescue craft streaked toward the disintegrating station. Walker knew it was probably futile, but he had to try. The Imperial ship made no move to stop them. They didn't even seem to care. Emergency broadcasts filled the communications channels. Desperate calls for help, cut short one by one. Walker recognized his brother's voice among them, calling for evacuation from Lab Section 7. Then that channel went silent too. It took less than 5 minutes for the station to be completely destroyed. The rescue shuttles found no survivors, only debris and frozen bodies. The Imperial ship lingered just long enough to broadcast a message to Earth. This facility was found to be conducting research into prohibited technologies. Let this serve as a reminder of the consequences of overstepping your bounds. The Empire maintains peace through order. Further violations will be met with similar corrections. Then they were gone, jumping back into FTL, as if they hadn't just murdered 300 innocent people. Walker stood in silence, watching the debris field that had been his brother's workplace, his brother's grave. His crew waited for orders, but for several long moments, he couldn't speak. When he finally did, his voice was barely a whisper. "Record everything. Every sensor reading, every communication, every piece of debris. I want it all documented." He turned to his first officer, his face set in stone. "Get me a secure channel to Admiral Thompson. The Empire just declared war on humanity. They just don't know it yet." As the Sentinel began its grim work of documenting the massacre, Walker made a silent promise to his brother and everyone else who died that day. The Empire would learn that humanity wasn't just another species to be kept in line. They would learn that humans didn't take kindly to bullies, no matter how powerful they claimed to be. And they would learn it the hard way. Admiral Marcus Thompson stared at the data screen in his underground office beneath the Rocky Mountains. his weathered face reflected in the glass as he reviewed the footage from the Jupiter station attack for the 100th time. Something wasn't adding up. "Play it again," he ordered the computer. "Focus on the debris pattern after the first blast." The screen showed the horrible moment once more, but this time, Thompson noticed something new. Just before the station's destruction, there was a brief energy spike, not from the Imperial weapons, but from the station itself. "They were testing something," he muttered. "Computer, cross-reference all research projects at Jupiter Station from the past year." The results made his blood run cold. Hidden under layers of ordinary research papers were fragments of data about faster-than-light travel experiments, not using the Empire's approved methods, but something entirely new. His secure phone buzzed. It was Captain Walker's code. "James," Thompson answered, "I was just looking at your sensor data. Tell me you see it too." "Yes, sir. The energy signature just before the attack. It matches some of Tom's notes that he sent me last month. They were close to something big." Walker's voice was rough with emotion. "The Empire didn't just kill them for no reason. They knew." Thompson leaned back in his chair. "The question is, how did they know? We've had 20 research stations working on various projects. Why this one? Why now?" "Sir," Walker hesitated, "I've been talking to some of our alien trading partners. Quietly. They've shared some stories. This isn't the first time the Empire has done something like this." Thompson pulled up another screen, typing quickly. "Go on." 3 years ago, a Centaurian research facility disappeared. 5 years before that, an entire Rigelian science colony. The Empire claimed accidents, natural disasters. But the pattern is the same. Any species that gets close to developing their own FTL technology suddenly has a tragedy. "They're keeping us dependent on their technology," Thompson said. "All of us. Every species in the Empire." He pulled up more files, more records. "Look at this. Every piece of advanced technology we use comes from them. The ships, the weapons, the drives. They've never taught us how to make our own." "What do we do, sir?" Walker asked. "I sent the evidence to Earth Command, but they're scared. The Empire's ships are in orbit right now, watching us." Thompson stood up and walked to his office window, looking out at the mountain view. A view that wasn't really there, just a projection to make the underground bunker feel less claustrophobic. "The government will try to smooth this over," he said. "They'll accept whatever excuse the Empire gives them. Because right now, we can't fight back. But that doesn't mean we do nothing." He turned back to his screens. "I'm sending you coordinates. There's a base on Mars, officially abandoned after the dust storms last year. But it's not abandoned. Dr. Anna Miller is there with a team of survivors from other accidents. They've been continuing their research in secret. You knew about this all along." Walker's voice held a mix of surprise and respect. "I've been preparing for something like this for years. The Empire isn't as all-seeing as they think. We have friends out there, James. Other species who are tired of being kept down. We just need to give them hope. Give them a reason to stand up. And my brother's research. The new FTL drive." Thompson smiled grimly. "Dr. Miller's team is already working on it. The Empire thought they destroyed the research, but Tom was smart. He shared his findings through back channels. We're close, James. Very close." "When do I leave for Mars?" "Not yet. I need you visible, doing your job, looking properly cowed and obedient. The Empire will be watching closely right now. But soon." Thompson's voice hardened. "The Empire thinks they've taught us a lesson. Instead, they've just shown us exactly who they are. And when we're ready, they'll learn who we are." As Thompson ended the call, alerts flashed on his screen. The Empire's Council was demanding a meeting with Earth's leaders. The cover-up was beginning. But this time, humanity wouldn't just bow their heads and accept it. This time would be different. The red dust of Mars swirled outside the reinforced windows of Base Echo. Dr. Anna Miller wiped sweat from her forehead as she studied the holographic display floating above her workbench. The underground base was hot. They couldn't risk running the cooling systems at full power in case the Empire's satellites detected the heat signature. "Run the simulation again," she told her computer. "Adjust the particle flow by 0.3%. The display showed a tiny ship model, its drive core pulsing with theoretical energy. For a moment, it seemed to work. Then the simulation crashed, just like the 100 attempts before it. "Dr. Miller," a young technician called from the doorway. "Captain Walker has arrived." Anna straightened up. She'd heard about Walker. His brother Tom had been one of her best friends at Jupiter Station. "Send him in." Walker entered, still wearing his Earth Defense Force uniform despite being officially on leave. His eyes swept the lab, taking in the makeshift equipment and tired researchers. "Welcome to the Resistance, Captain," Anna said. "Tom told me a lot about you." Walker's jaw tightened at his brother's name. "He told me about you too, Doctor. Said you were the smartest person he'd ever met." He looked at the hologram. "Is that it? The drive he was working on?" Anna nodded. "We're close." Tom's final calculations. She paused, fighting back emotions. They were brilliant. The Empire didn't just attack because we were developing FTL technology. They attacked because we were developing something better than theirs. She waved her hand through the hologram, expanding it. Their drives punched through space, forcing their way from point A to point B, brutal, inefficient, like their whole empire. But the simulation showed waves of energy gently bending around the ship. "This works with space itself. No force needed, just understanding." "How close are you?" "A few weeks, maybe less. But we need help." Anna led Walker to another room where several alien scientists worked. "Meet our friends. They all lost colleagues to Imperial accidents. Each of them brought pieces of the puzzle." A tall, blue-skinned researcher looked up. "Captain Walker, I am lead researcher Dax. My facility on Centauri Prime was destroyed 3 years ago. We were working on similar principles to your brother." Walker looked around the room. "How many others are out there? Other species working against the Empire?" "Many," Anna said. "Admiral Thompson has been building this network for years. Every time the Empire destroys a research facility, they think they're erasing knowledge. Instead, they're just spreading it around. The survivors find each other, share what they know." She pulled up another display showing a map of known Imperial space. "We have hidden bases like this one on 12 different worlds. The Empire thinks they control everything from their central worlds, but they can't watch everywhere at once." "And what happens when we finish the drive?" Walker asked. "When we prove it works." Anna smiled. "Then we share it with everyone. Every species they've kept down, every world they've threatened. The Empire's power comes from controlling technology, keeping everyone dependent on them. But they've made a mistake." "What's that?" "They've given all their enemies a common cause, and they've pushed us all into working together." She gestured at the diverse group of scientists. "We're not just building a new engine, Captain. We're building an alliance." The holographic ship pulsed again, and this time, the simulation held steady. Anna's eyes lit up. "And I think we're getting very close to showing the Empire exactly what that alliance can do." Walker watched the simulation complete successfully for the first time. In the gentle waves of energy, he saw hope, not just for humanity, but for every species the Empire had tried to keep down. The Resistance was about to become something much bigger. The test ship was small, barely larger than a shuttle. It floated in the darkness of Mars' northern polar crater, hidden from Imperial satellites by the deep shadows. Inside Base Echo's control room, Dr. Anna Miller took a deep breath as she prepared for their first real test. "All systems check complete," reported Dax from his station. "Power level stable." Captain Walker stood behind them, watching the numerous screens. In the month since he'd arrived, the team had made incredible progress. Now they would see if it was enough. "Begin power-up sequence," Anna ordered. Her hands moved steadily over the controls despite her racing heart. "Tom, I hope you're watching," she whispered to herself. The new drive core hummed to life. Unlike the Empire's engines, which glowed with harsh, artificial light, this one produced a soft, almost natural blue shimmer. It looked like starlight on water. "Phase 1 complete," Dax announced. "Drive signature is masked. Imperial sensors will read it as background radiation." That was their first victory. The Empire's ships announced their presence with bright, obvious energy signatures. This new drive was subtle, working with space instead of against it. "Beginning Phase 2, Anna said. "Preparing for first spacefold." The plan was simple but dangerous. They would attempt to move the ship just 1 kilometer. A tiny jump that would prove their theory worked. If they succeeded, they could scale up to longer distances. Warning alerts suddenly flashed across their screens. "Imperial Patrol," a sensor operator shouted. "2 ships coming around the pole." Walker moved to the communication station. "How did they find us?" "They haven't," Anna said, studying the data. "Regular patrol pattern. But if we power down now, we lose 3 weeks of preparation. If we don't, they'll detect us and we lose everything," Walker argued. Anna's fingers flew over the controls. "No, we do this now. Dax, reroute all power to the masking systems. Everyone else, stand by for jump sequence." The Imperial ships drew closer. On the screens, their energy signatures blazed like angry red stars compared to the gentle blue pulse of the test ship. "Drive at full power," Dax reported. "Masking holding, but only just." Anna activated the final sequence. Spacefold initiating in 3, 2, 1. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, on every screen, the test ship simply vanished. No flash, no burst of energy. It was there, and then it wasn't. "Location," Anna demanded. "Scanning," the sensor operator said. "Found it. Exactly 1 kilometer from starting position. Perfect placement." The control room erupted in cheers. Even Walker smiled. But Anna wasn't done. "Bringing it back," she announced. Again, the ship disappeared and reappeared, returning to its starting point just as the Imperial patrol passed overhead. They never noticed a thing. After the patrol moved on, Anna finally let herself relax. She looked at the screens showing the test ship's data. Everything had worked exactly as Tom's equations had predicted. "This changes everything," Walker said quietly. "The Empire's defenses are built to stop their kind of FTL. They track incoming ships by their energy signatures. But this, they'll never see us coming," Dax finished, "or any of the other resistance ships we're going to build." Anna nodded. "Send the data to Admiral Thompson. Tell him Operation Breakthrough is successful. And send the drive specifications to our allies on other worlds. Tell them to begin construction immediately." She walked to the window, looking out at the red Martian landscape. "The Empire thinks they've stopped us from advancing. Instead, they've pushed us to create something they can't even understand." Walker joined her at the window. "What's the next step?" "We build more ships. We train crews. And we wait for the right moment." She turned to face the room full of scientists and engineers from a dozen different worlds. The Empire's greatest weapon was keeping us divided and dependent. But now, she smiled, now we have something they don't. And soon, they're going to learn what happens when you push too far. The test ship hung silently in a crater's shadow, its gentle blue drive core ready to change the galaxy forever. The meeting room deep beneath the surface of Europa was crowded with representatives from 12 different species. Admiral Thompson stood at the head of the table, looking at faces that would have been impossible to gather in one place just 6 months ago. "The Empire's latest patrol schedule," he said, projecting a map into the air above the table. Red dots showed Imperial ships moving in precise patterns. They're increasing their presence in every sector. They know something's happening. They just don't know what. Captain Walker, sitting to Thompson's right, spoke up. Let them search. Our new ships don't show up on their scans. We could park a fleet right next to their capital, and they wouldn't see it. How many ships are ready? Asked the Centaurian ambassador, his blue skin reflecting the hologram's light. 28 completed, Dr. Miller reported from her seat. Another 52 under construction in hidden facilities across 12 systems. The new drive cores are working perfectly. Every ship can move undetected. The Rigelian representative leaned forward, her crystalline features catching the light. My people have completed the new weapon systems. They work on the same principle as the drives. Subtle, invisible, until they strike. The Empire's shields won't stop them. Thompson nodded. The Empire thinks they've kept us weak by controlling our technology. Instead, they've forced us to think differently, to find better ways. A deep voice rumbled from the back of the room. The Arcturian general, his massive form barely fitting in the human-sized chair, spoke carefully. My scouts report the Empire is building something big, a new class of warship. They mean to make examples of any worlds they suspect of resistance. Let them build, Walker said. Their ships get bigger, more obvious, easier to track. Meanwhile, our fleet grows in the shadows. Dr. Miller pulled up new data on the display. We've also discovered something interesting. The Empire's own worlds are starting to question things. Their control is slipping. Some of their scientists have seen our work. They want to help. This caused a stir around the table. The Empire's core worlds had always been loyal, sharing in the benefits of keeping other species down. Can they be trusted? The Centaurian asked. They're like us, Miller explained. Tired of seeing progress held back by fear and control. The Empire doesn't just suppress other species, they suppress their own people too. Any research, any advancement that might threaten their power gets shut down. Thompson raised his hand for quiet. The Empire's strength was always in keeping us divided. Species fighting species, worlds competing for scraps of technology. But they made a mistake when they attacked that station near Jupiter. He looked around the room. They showed everyone their true face. And in doing so, they gave us all a common cause. Now we have ships they can't detect, weapons they can't stop, and allies they don't know about. When do we strike? The Arcturian general asked. Soon, Thompson replied. The Empire is planning something big. When they make their move, thinking they're showing their strength, we'll show them ours. Walker stood up. We're not just fighting to free humanity. We're fighting to free every species that's been held back, every world that's been threatened, every mind that's been forced to stop asking questions. The representatives nodded in agreement. Years of fear were turning into determination. The Empire had spent centuries making sure no single species could challenge them. They never considered what would happen if every species worked together. As the meeting continued, a message flashed on Thompson's screen. The Empire was indeed building something. A massive fleet, meant to maintain order through overwhelming force. Thompson smiled grimly. Let them build their fleet. The bigger their ships, the harder they would fall. The real power in the galaxy was gathering right here, in this hidden room, preparing to change everything. 3 months after the first strike, the Imperial capital world looked very different. The massive towers that had once housed the Empire's council now served as meeting halls for the new Galactic Federation. Representatives from every species, including former Imperial citizens, worked together to build something new. Admiral Thompson stood at the window of what had once been the Imperial High Council chamber. Captain Walker and Dr. Miller stood beside him, watching ships move through the sky. Vessels of all shapes and sizes, using both old and new technology freely shared between worlds. The last Imperial holdout surrendered this morning, Walker reported. Their commander said something interesting. He said he'd never seen species work together like this before. Miller smiled. That was always their weakness. They thought keeping us divided made them stronger. They never imagined what would happen when we united. The door opened, and Dax entered with several other scientists. "The first public research center is ready," he announced. Scientists from 30 different species working together, sharing knowledge openly. No more secrets, no more suppression. Thompson nodded. "And the Imperial Council?" "Their trial begins tomorrow," Walker said. "Representatives from every world they harmed will present evidence. But it's not about revenge. It's about making sure this never happens again." A young aide rushed in. "Admiral, the first ships are ready." They moved to a large viewing window overlooking the space dock. 3 massive exploration vessels hung in their berths, their hulls shining in the sunlight. They were joint projects: human engineering, Centaurian power systems, Rigelian sensors, and contributions from a dozen other species. "The first true cooperative venture," Miller said proudly. "These ships will carry teams from every world to explore beyond the Empire's old borders. There's so much out there we were never allowed to see." "What about the Imperial citizens?" Walker asked. "How are they adjusting?" "Better than expected," Thompson replied. "Many of them were just as trapped as we were, bound by rules about what they could research, where they could go, who they could talk to. Now they're free too." A group of former Imperial scientists had been especially helpful, sharing centuries of suppressed research. Combined with the new technologies developed by the Resistance, it had sparked a golden age of discovery and innovation. "We're receiving a transmission," the aide announced. "It's from the Jupiter Memorial." The screen lit up, showing the new station built where the Empire had destroyed the old one. But this wasn't just a replacement, it was a symbol. The station now housed the largest scientific research facility in known space, dedicated to sharing knowledge between all species. "Hard to believe it's only been a year," Walker said quietly, thinking of his brother. Tom would have loved to see this. "He did see it," Miller replied. "His work helped make it possible. Everyone we lost, everyone the Empire tried to silence. They're all part of this." Thompson turned to address the room. "The Empire thought they could control progress by controlling knowledge. They thought keeping us dependent would keep us weak. Instead, they taught us the greatest lesson of all, that we're stronger together than we ever were apart." Outside, more ships were arriving. Vessels from newly discovered worlds beyond the Empire's borders, coming to join the Federation. Each brought new ideas, new technologies, new ways of thinking. "The Empire's gone," Walker said, "but they did give us one thing. They gave us a reason to unite, to prove that cooperation beats control every time." As the sun set on the former Imperial capital, the stars came out, not as distant, forbidden places, but as destinations waiting to be explored. Humanity had helped break the chains that bound 100 worlds. Now together, they would build something better. The Empire's brutal act had indeed sparked humanity's wrath. But from that wrath had come not destruction, but creation. Not vengeance, but vision. Not an ending, but a beginning. And this was just the start. The Imperial flagship Dominion hung in Earth's orbit like a massive sword, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. Behind it, 50 other Imperial warships formed a wall of steel and energy, their weapons aimed at humanity's homeworld. Admiral Vale stood on his bridge, looking down at the blue planet with cold satisfaction. "Send the message," he ordered. On Earth, in every capital city, Imperial announcements appeared on screens and billboards. "For your own protection and continued development, the Empire is establishing a permanent peacekeeping force in your system. Resistance will result in immediate corrective action." Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Thompson watched the Imperial fleet through hidden sensors. He touched his command console, opening a secure channel to all Resistance ships. "All units, execute Operation Shadow Strike. Authorization code. Remember Jupiter." Across the galaxy, in 12 different star systems, invisible ships powered up their drives. Dr. Miller's technology worked perfectly. None of them appeared on Imperial sensors. Captain Walker, commanding one of the lead ships, gave the order to begin. Space fold in 3, 2, 1. The Resistance fleet simply appeared around the Imperial ships. No warning, no energy signature, no chance to raise shields. 100 smaller ships surrounding 50 large Imperial warships. Before the Empire could react, the new weapons fired. Beams of energy, invisible until they struck, cut through Imperial shields like they weren't there. The Rigelian weapons worked exactly as designed, targeting engines and weapons systems with surgical precision. What's happening? Vale demanded as alarms blared across his bridge. Where did they come from? Why didn't we detect them? On Earth, people watched in amazement as the mighty Imperial fleet suddenly found itself helpless. Ship after ship lost power, their engines dead, their weapons useless. The Resistance ships moved like ghosts between them, striking without being seen. Thompson opened a channel to the Dominion. Admiral Vale, remember that research station you destroyed near Jupiter? The one working on prohibited technology. They succeeded before you killed them, and now their success is your failure. Walker's ship appeared directly in front of the Dominion, finally letting itself be seen. Its drive core pulsed with soft blue light, so different from the harsh red glow of Imperial engines. "This is for my brother," Walker said, firing his weapons. The Dominion's main power core went dark. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Resistance ships appeared at every major Imperial military base, every fleet gathering point. The Empire had built their defenses to stop ships they could see coming, using technology they understood. They had no defense against this. In the Imperial capital, the Council watched in horror as reports flooded in. Their mighty fleets were being systematically disabled by ships that seemed to appear from nowhere. And now their own people were turning against them. Scientists and citizens on Imperial worlds, tired of living under control and fear, rose up as they saw the Resistance succeed. The Empire had spent so long watching for threats from outside, they never saw the threat from within. Thompson sent one final message to all Imperial forces. Your choice is simple. Stand down and help us build something better, or be remembered as the ones who held back progress for all species. The Empire's time is over. Above Earth, the once mighty Imperial fleet hung powerless. Vale stared at his dead displays, remembering how easily his ships had destroyed that research station. Now he understood. They hadn't just killed scientists that day. They had given birth to their own destruction. Walker looked down at his homeworld, now free from Imperial threats. Send word to all Resistance cells, he ordered. Phase 1 complete. Begin liberation operations on all occupied worlds. The real war was just beginning, but its outcome was already clear. The Empire's greatest weapon had been fear. And now, no one was afraid anymore.